Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. So, welcome to another episode of Christian Apologetics. And today I just want to share with you guys another very quick response to a very common objection that skeptics or atheists or non-believers pose to Christians or to believers. And that is, as you're going to see in the title, faith and reason are incompatible. So skeptics, they reason like this. They say, because faith is believing without any proof, without any evidence, reason is the exact opposite. Reason, when you examine the evidence and you come to the most reasonable conclusion. That's reasoning, right? Analyzing, that's logic. And therefore, because of the fact that you Christians are believing these fairy tales that do not have any kind of evidence, you are believing against evidence. So it's something that is completely opposite reason, because it's faith. Faith is just believing without having any evidence. That's why skeptics call Christians unreasonable, or the fact that we are like dumb, or other objectives. You can just create whatever you want. And so that's the objection. So they label us as unreasonable. They are the reasonable ones. They are the ones that are actually using the reason to conclude that the Bible is not true, or that Christianity is not true, or that God doesn't exist. Instead, because we believe that God exists or that Christianity is true, we are the unreasonable ones. Now, this objection is very easy to refute, because it's all about the definition. You see, when people talk about faith, they consider always believing something without evidence or even against evidence. But that's not actually what the faith that Jesus and the Bible calls us to have. You see, there might be some Christians that believe without any reason and cannot actually defend why or what they believe. Maybe they were raised in a Christian family, maybe they attended always church, they always went to church, maybe they never realized or analyzed the Bible, the Gospels, maybe they don't know the evidence, maybe they don't know anything, and maybe they can't defend what they believe. So in this case, they're having a blind faith, because they are believing Christianity is true. They're calling themselves Christians without having any hint about the evidence. But in reality, Christianity is based on the evidence and is based on reason. You see, Jesus calls us not to have a blind or unreasonable faith, so believing against evidence, but Jesus asked us to believe Him because of the evidence. So instead of having reason and faith opposite one another, what Jesus is asking us is to have both reason and faith at the same time. I know this might sound weird or maybe impossible, but let's just see, and let's just go and read some verses to really see why I'm saying this. You see, the Bible itself teaches us this. So if we go here into Matthew chapter 22, right here, verse 37, here Jesus is talking, and He says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself." So this is when Jesus was asked what was the greatest commandment. This was the reply of Jesus. So love God with all your soul, with all your heart, and then with all your mind. Now see, very importantly, the use of the word mind. Now Jesus here is referring to loving God with our thinking, with reason. Why? We find the answer in other parts of the same gospel. In this case, I'm going to just read you a verse from John, but it's just you can find this on all the gospels, on almost all the gospels. And here in John, see here what Jesus is saying. John chapter 10, verse 37 and 38. "Do not believe me unless I do what my Father does. But if I do it, Even though you do not believe me, believe the miracles, that you may know and understand that the Father is in me and I in the Father. You can find here the reason. See, here Jesus is not simply asking the disciples or his followers to follow him just because of what he was saying. No, anyone can say, I am God, right? Even I can say, I am God, or I am the Son of God, or I can do this. But can you prove it, right? Can I prove to be God? Of course I can't. But here Jesus was actually proving it. Jesus was not solely saying that he was God, but also proved it by doing miracles. So supernatural things that weren't possible or weren't explainable in any other way than to say, yes, this is a miracle, something that it's impossible to occur naturally. And see, here Jesus was saying, see, if you don't believe me, at least believe in what I do in the miracles, because these things that I do that are impossible testify about who I am. I wouldn't be able to do these things unless I were God. I was God, right? So you can see here the approach of Jesus on reason, on evidence. Jesus never asked his disciples, his followers, to follow him blindly, blind faith. Remember before the definition, but with reasonable faith. So faith based on the evidence, on all the evidence that he provided. And we can find another very interesting verse about this in Acts. First chapter, in this case, Jesus had risen, and after he died on the cross. And then here in verse 3 he says, after his suffering, he showed himself to these men, to the disciples, and gave many convincing proofs that he was alive. He appeared to them over a period of 40 days and spoke about the kingdom of God. You can see here once again, it's the same pattern as we saw before. Jesus here is providing evidence. He just didn't, already the resurrection is the greatest piece of evidence that Jesus could ever give to his disciples. They had seen him dead, they had seen his corpse, they had buried him in the tomb, and then they had seen him alive again. So what better proof there can be than that? But you can see here that Jesus stayed with them 40 days, and he just kept on showing them many convincing proofs. He was really equipping his disciples to be eyewitnesses to go then in the world and to spread Christianity. And that's why he was giving so much evidence. Jesus was giving them so many proofs so that the disciples would have so many things to say about Jesus. And also because in this way their faith would have been strengthened even more. You see, the disciples, they had seen so many miracles. They had seen Jesus rising from the dead, and then they had seen all these many convincing proofs that he was alive, that he had really risen from the dead. And therefore their faith was based on all the evidence that Jesus provided. It was not a blind faith. It was not an unreasonable or a faith against evidence, but it was a faith based on the evidence. And you can see this exactly what reason is. Reason is just analyzing evidence and just coming to the most reasonable conclusion. And then there is just one more example I want to provide you with, that we can find it on always Acts chapter 17. In this case, this is Paul, the Apostle Paul. And here it says, verse 2, as his custom was, Paul went into the synagogue, and on 3 Sabbath days he reasoned with them from the scriptures. So you can see here, what was Paul saying? He was reasoning with them. So that means that Paul was using his reason to provide all the Jews, in this case, with evidence to believe that Jesus was actually the Messiah, was God, was the Son of God. And he was reasoning because he was just showing evidence. You see, reasoning, when you're reasoning with someone, you're trying to, show them or convince them of something, that you think is true. And therefore, he was taking all the evidence that he had learned from the disciples, from the other apostles, from his own personal experience, anything, and he was just providing it to these unbelievers. And he was reasoning with them about the scriptures. So you can see here, this is exactly what we as Christians, we should do. We should reason. We should use our reason. Of course, there are some Christians that say or that do not want to reason. And that's unfortunate, but this is not true. The reality of Christianity is that we should use reason, and we should reason with others. We should provide the evidence that the eyewitnesses wrote in all the gospel accounts. Of course, by living now, we cannot we cannot be eyewitnesses, because Jesus, it's already gone. It's 2,000 years that's gone. But what happens is that these disciples were actually eyewitnesses, and they wrote in the Gospels all the things they had seen, they had done. And we, as today, as the chain of custody goes, we can read these verses, we can read the Bible, and we can be sure that these accounts are reliable, and we can actually trust them, and therefore we can believe that these things happen really, that are true, because of the fact that they're based on eyewitnesses' accounts, because they were eyewitnesses. We aren't, but we can believe because of them. And so that's just the whole point of Christianity. Never stop at just believe in Christianity because we're told to do so, or because maybe it's just the best thing to do. Don't do it. Just go in depth and analyze Christianity, because that's exactly what Jesus and what the Bible asks you to do. They ask you to reason. Come, he says on Psalm, let us reason together. So when you go into the Bible, you start reading, you start comparing different verses. Okay, I find this thing, but then I also find in this gospel, wait, what are they different? Oh, they're actually complementing each other, actually providing some information that the other one wasn't given. Or what about this detail? Why is here and I can't find it in other gospels? And so on. Once you start analyzing all the gospels, you really start realizing how much evidence and how much reliability there is, and you can actually trust them to be real witnesses' accounts. And that's the whole point. So don't stop believing. Don't believe just because you believe, but always go above, always go beyond, always try to analyze the evidence, try to, of course, to learn it. You need to search it, you need to learn it, you need to maybe go into some websites. I just recommend like coldcasechristianity.com is a beautiful verse from a website from J. Warner Wallace that has so much information about the reliability of the Gospels, of the evidence for God's existence, and then his latest book, Forensic Faith, that speaks exactly about all these things, equipping being Christians with a faith that is grounded on evidence. It's not grounded on our own personal feelings or beliefs, but it's grounded on evidence. And in this way, we can be Christians that are better equipped, that are going to also be able to resist the objections. And actually, we're going to be able to refute them, and we're going to maybe be able to help someone to get close to Christianity, to analyze the evidence. We never know. So I just wanted to do this video to really encourage all of you who maybe are young Christians, or maybe you are a Christian but you never have actually asked yourself why I'm a Christian, or is Christianity true? Is what I believe actually true? And I just recommend you to go into this website called Cash Christianity and to read articles, watch videos, listen to podcasts, and really start learning all the evidence that there is for Christianity, so that in that way you're going to be better equipped to be a better Christian and to actually influence others and bring the evidence to others. God bless you and stay well. Bye-bye.